Everyone for attending this Governance Committee meeting on Wednesday, 17th of January 2024. My name is Councillor Alan Platt and I am Chair of this committee. Councillor Mark Clifford on my right is Vice Chair. Members are reminded that the meeting is being recorded and will be accessible on the Council's YouTube page. If you wish to speak at any stage, please indicate to me you wish to do so. When I invite you to speak, please turn your microphone on and turn it off when you've finished speaking. Please speak clearly and not cover your mouth when speaking to make it easier for any lip readers to understand you. Can anyone ensure their phones are turned to silent? We're not expecting a fire drill, so if the alarms sound, please exit the way you came in and congregate in St Thomas's Square next to the police station. Finally, can I please welcome Christine Wood, who is joining the Democratic Services teams whilst Nina is off on maternity leave. Okay, we'll begin the meeting. Apologies for absence.
Yes, we've got Councillor Sherwood's submitted apologies, with Councillor Berry being acting as substitute, and our two independent persons, Charlotte Fitch and Pete Ripley, have sent apologies. Thanks, Chair.
Thanks, Ben. Item 2, declarations of interest. Members are reminded of their responsibility to declare any pecuniary interest in respect of matters contained in this agenda. Does anyone have any interest to declare? That's a no. Item 3, minutes of the meeting Wednesday the 23rd of November 2023. The minutes of the last meeting were included within the agenda. Are there any comments or points of accuracy to raise?
Thank you, Chair. Just one in the minutes. There's just a line that slightly doesn't make sense, and it just should read, this is under 23G44, and it says it should say a working group derived from the committee. So just that really to point out as a comment. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Councillor Clifford. I think Ben had clarified that the minutes presented to Council will be amended. This requires a vote. I'll try not to do what I did last time. So can we have a proposer and a seconder? Thank everybody. We'll take that as moved then. Item 4, annual governance statement, management actions update, pages 9 to 14 of your papers. Dawn Heighton, the Head of Audit and Risk, will present this item. Over to you, Dawn, if you've not wrecked the joint.
Apologies. Yeah, thank you, Chair. So this is our update report on the annual governance statement management actions. So back in May, the full annual governance statement is presented to members, and it identifies a range of actions that we will take to improve our governance arrangements. They're not necessarily weaknesses within our systems, but it's how we can further improve our arrangements. So further on in the report, detailed on page 10, is a table which sets out each action and what we're going to do to improve those arrangements. And the final column is where we're up to, basically, is what progress we've made. I'll just highlight a couple of the actions. It's just to demonstrate really how we're addressing the actions identified. So if you take the first action, it was about implementation of agreed audit actions. So when I come back to where we were in May, the implementation of audit actions wasn't maybe as quick, or as we weren't where we should have been in terms of implementation. So there's been quite a focus on getting those actions addressed and compensating controls put in place where the original action couldn't be taken. And we're now in a much better place. We're not quite at the 90% our target implementation rate, but there is a lot of progress being made in that actions are discussed at all directorate management teams, and Grace, where we store our management actions, that's being updated regularly to demonstrate those improvements. There's a couple of other actions as well that I can point to this agenda on. So further on down, there's an action about our assets and our inventories. So over the past 12 months, we've done, again, a huge piece of work in terms of logging our inventories. We implemented a new system for logging inventories. We had to make sure that, you know, obviously we could find the inventory, the asset, sorry, it was recorded on the inventory, it was security marked, the value was correct. You know, this is all about making sure that we're insuring the right amounts and that, you know, people have access to the right equipment that they need to do their jobs. So we did that significant piece of work, and not only did we do that, we've then done an internal audit to verify the accuracy of those inventories. So that was an action on the action plan that we've progressed. And there's a further one again about the risk management strategy, which is again on the agenda. So you can see that, you know, we identify the actions and we take steps to address it and improve our governance arrangements. The report, just for noting, because as I say, when we come back to the committee in May, we'll have this year's annual governance statement, and that will reflect on the actions we've taken over the course of the year and identify any further ones going forward. But I'm happy to take any questions.
Thanks, Dawn. Any questions for Dawn? Councillor Hayden?
Thanks, Dawn. I just wondered if you could go on to page 10 first of all, and it's the box that says poor management of council contracts, so it's the next to the bottom on the page 10. Can you just put some context in that? Is that lack of management by getting them onto an IT system, or generally on the ground they're not managed well?
I think it's a combination of factors. I mean, I think we need to improve the way we manage the performance of contracts. I think it's something that the public sector in general needs to improve. So I think that's primarily that's driving that. But we are in terms of procurement, we are trying to strengthen the procurement team, enable them, give them the resources to take a more proactive approach, gather together a full repository of all contracts so that we can keep a proper eye on end dates and when we need to serve notices and the like. So I think it's all those factors. Well, we're looking at that a while ago, but we're looking in terms of the best way to do that in terms of moving forward, in terms of, I mean, a couple of years ago, what we were going to do was upgrade the South Ribble system and then import that here, but for various reasons, that's not going to happen. So we are looking at that again. But as I say, we are actively looking to strengthen the procurement team to enable them to have a more proactive role, a more controlling role, and as I say, to keep a proper record of everything.
Will they need that to support them?
It would certainly assist, and that's what we're looking to get something in place. Yes. Can't give you a definite timescale, but it is something we're considering. It's not something we've forgotten about in any way.
Sorry, Councillor Hayden, can you press you?
Oh, sorry. Sorry. Are waivers put in place because contracts are failing? Is that one of the reasons?
No, that's not the reason why waivers are granted. Waivers are granted, it's at the initial stage before you enter into a contract. And as you know, normally if you're going to enter into a contract, depends on the value of the contract, but you have to go through some kind of procurement exercise, some kind of tender exercise. Now, there may be circumstances where that's not practical or not desirable for various reasons. Sometimes, for example, on the IT front, there's only one supplier you can go with. So these are some of the reasons why you have to waive contract procedure rules. And as I explained at the training, though, this is not a decision just for the officer. It's got to be signed off by the director, by the monitoring officer, by the director of finance, and by the chief executive. So there are all those controls in place.
Okay, that's great. And can I just go to page 11 as well, please? The first box, mandatory training completion needs monitoring. So is that something that we were alluding to when we were having our
Yes, so mandatory training, there's a suite of mandatory training that all officers have to undertake. And that was launched, was it 2 years ago, Holly? Yeah, we've got a dedicated system now that all our mandatory training is held on. What we were finding was the completion rates weren't as high. And again, there's been a lot of focus on this and they've massively improved. So I would think that by the time we get to May to bring this back, that action will be complete.
Thank you. Oh, that the other one, this is the, I think we might have covered it in there as well. The second box down on that same page is about this review was planned to take place but couldn't be done because of lack of resources. Have we got anything in view of when that's going to happen?
Yes, that's a job for me to complete the looking at how we manage our risk of fraud, and that's due to be completed before the end of March. So I'll be doing that over the next month or so.
So that won't be being done by an outside body, it could be done.
No, that'll be for me to
internally.
do, to work with them.
Okay. Page 12, please. Which is the failure to, the first box. Internal processes are being implemented to ensure addition of procured and waiver contracts to the Transparency Register and ensure contract awards are supported by decisions. So this is the work that you were talking about that the procurement team are developing, is it?
Yeah, that's part of that, but also we do have a new system for signing off waivers. A new system has been introduced.
Right, okay, thank you. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Councillor Berry?
Yeah, apologies if this had been covered at earlier governance meetings, but could I just ask a question about when there's been decision making, particularly around procurement during COVID, was there obviously a significant number of contracts, suppliers kept on because we just had to keep going forward for the right kind of reasons about that we need continuity to keep everything right, but has there been a sort of some attention given to that kind of behaviour we had, which came about, after a significant emergency that put everything at risk, community-wise, and do we have any sort of like lessons learned about how we'd deal with things in the future?
I don't know if Dawn can assist, but I'm not aware that we had any particular issues during COVID over procurement. I don't think we've done any audit or anything, so I don't think we're aware of any problems or issues. I don't know if Dawn can assist.
No, not that I'm aware of.
Yeah.
No.
Any more questions, observations? I'd just like to thank Councillor Hayden for completely doing my list for me to save me speaking. Thank you. The committee's asked to note the progress update. So are we happy to do so? Yep. Okay. Item 5, the Code of Conduct and Associated Social Media Policy, pages 15 to 30 in your papers. Dave Whelan will present this.
Yes, Chair. We had a debate about this last time, as I'm sure we'll all recall. And the debate last time centred on certain other issues as well as the code, in particular social media protocol. Now, the way forward being suggested now, two recommendations, that the model code that you saw last time, which is the model code prepared by the LGA, that should be recommended to full council for approval and adoption. But secondly, that members of the committee agreed terms of reference for a working group established to consider an associated social media protocol. I think even from our discussions just before, I think that the fact that there probably is a need, I would suggest for us to look at social media properly and maybe have an additional protocol. So in terms of the code of conduct, the reason we're recommending recommended adoption of the code, apart from the fact it's a good document, is that the Office of Standards and Public Life are encouraging councils to have a consistent form and a presentation of codes across different organisations. So if you could be a triple-hatted councillor, you could be on a town council, parish council, you could be on this council, you could be on county council. It's helpful if the three codes are more or less the same. It assists. In terms of the social media protocol, we do have a social media protocol. It was adopted some time ago. And I think if you read it, you'd probably agree with me that most of it seems to apply to officers and what officers should do and how officers should conduct themselves. There probably is, well, it's a matter for yourselves, but there possibly is a need to have something bespoke for members. So in terms of the social media protocol, you'll see at Appendix 2 to the report that that's an example of a social media protocol from a nearby council. That document was produced 5-6 years ago. I'm certainly not suggesting that's the answer or that's perfect. It certainly isn't, but that's possibly a useful starting point. So what we would like to do, as I say, is to set up a working group to look at social media protocol, the development of a social media protocol. So we need to determine who's going to be on that working group, and we also need to determine terms of reference. In paragraph 14 of the report, there's some key questions set out there, which is, do we want to look at a number of other similar protocols? Whether the wording we should use should be declarative, namely, I will do this, I will not do that, or whether it should be directive, namely, you will do this, you will do that. Whether we want something very comprehensive or whether we want something light touch. Is it useful to have a series of do's and don'ts, as we have in the policy set out in Appendix 2? And are there any other consideration that committee thinks will assist the working group? So that's the report, Chair. The procedure will be, if members are happy to set up a working group, we'll do that as soon as possible. We'll try and have them reporting back. I think there's a governance committee in mid-March, and then we'll try and get that to the earliest council meeting after that, because as we know, any change of constitution needs to be formally signed off by full council. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Dave. Could we for my personal benefit, can we separate the two items and we'll vote firstly on the on the model code of conduct to be presented to the full council? Are we happy with the code of conduct?
The social media protocol that you've included in here, that you say mainly refers to officers.
Sorry, Councillor Martin, can we just split the two?
All right.
This is what happened last time when we sort of went down a few dead ends and back alleys. So can we just decide, are there any questions on the model code of conduct to start with? Are we happy to put that to council? Can I have a proposer and a seconder? All happy? Thank you. Right, now we can get on to the social media. Councillor Martin.
It's actually only a brief question, to be honest. So where the protocol is included here in this document, and it makes reference to it being applicable to members, is it applicable to members?
Well, the first appendix is the existing
Yeah.
Chorley policy, which is social media policy. I would say that some of that would apply to members, but when I read it, I'm reading it as more being directed towards employees.
Yeah, I think it's worded that way, but probably the points within it of you shouldn't do this, you shouldn't do that. Does that apply to members?
Yeah, I think
currently.
some of that would. But the second document, the one just headed Social Media Protocol for Members, which is the existing South Ribble policy. It's about 6 years old now, though. That's specific for members.
Yeah.
And well, it's a matter for yourselves, but I do wonder whether you would want something clearly and specific to members.
Yeah, I mean, really, the point that I'm asking is this policy that's currently there applicable to members?
It would apply to members, but as I say, as I read it, the clear focus is on employees, and I think we could make it clearer and just develop a document which is focused on members, which I think would be for your assistance.
Yeah. No, I literally just wanted to clarify that we did already have a protocol and it is in place and members should be abiding by it. That's fine. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Martin. I think also it helps if people knew about it, if it was advertised more free to members. Right, the next sort of sub-item, shall we say, the social media policy. We have on agenda page 17, paragraph 14 and 15, suggestions as to how we proceed with this working group. Any comments on that? Any suggestions to add? Sorry, Councillor Clifford.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, there's a few. I'm all in favour of setting out do's and don'ts. That just makes things clear. That would be my personal comprehensive. To be honest, I do like comprehensive rather than light touch. It just clears up some of the grey areas, you know, and I probably would like a bit of clarification on there's the I will. I mean, obviously, as a councillor, when we sign to be a councillor, we sign up to the Nolan principles, everything. But can you tell me what the difference would be between the I will and you will if it was, say there was a case, there was a breach of the new code, how would that sort of play out in any sort of maybe a future standards hearing? I'm just trying to understand the difference of the I will and you will, and almost a legal definition really of what that would mean. Thanks.
I suppose in terms of whether there's a breach or not, I don't think it'd make a huge amount of difference. The only thing I'd say is that in the old days, codes tended to be you will do this, you will do that, and that was the style generally adopted. In more recent times, I've noticed the style tends to be I will. It's like when you say you sign up to the code, you're saying I'm committed to this, I'm committed to that. It's a question of style. I think the modern style is more I will, but there's no definite right or wrong answer. And when it comes to fundamental questions of whether there's been a breach or not, I don't think it would make much difference.
Thanks, Dave. Councillor Clifford, happy?
Yes. I'm looking at point A there, authority to review other similar protocols. I think looking at South Ribble's document there, I think that's a good starting document. So personally, I'd probably just to see things progress quickly, to use that as a starting, and then obviously for members of this working group to make the changes to that they see fit. And obviously, if it can be expedited, that will be very good, because obviously we do have elections coming up, and these sort of matters are important to members. The sooner new policies can come in, the better, I would say. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Clifford. Any more comments, observations, anything? Councillor Martin?
Really, it's about the reporting process of the complaint system. Should it be in the hands of one person? Should it be more than one person? Obviously, we have the independent person as well, but within the council, should it perhaps go to a panel of people for review to decide if it needs investigating? Because obviously, if it's all in the hands of one person, that you run the risk, obviously, there of people calling things out or saying things haven't been done properly. But if there's a proper oversight on it, even if it's a director looks at it or another person, for example, so that there is clarity on the whole process as well.
Yes, I mean, it's an interesting question. The way it normally works at the moment, I think this is common for most authorities, is that a complaint comes in, it'll be assessed by normally the monitoring officer in consultation with one of the independent persons. So the independent person gives the fresh view, the independent view, the view from outside the council. In terms of the idea of setting up a panel, I mean, if you go back many years, I've been around too long, but if you go back to standards regime, probably about 15 years ago, when it was framed in legislation, and back then you had to have subcommittees considering everything, and it became very burdensome, very bureaucratic. And also, I'd suggest most complaints come in, certainly not all, but most complaints come in aren't that serious. So I personally think the existing system is fine, strikes the right balance. It doesn't, of course, impact on the code of conduct, what we're talking here. This is a separate debate, albeit it's a related issue. So personally speaking, I think it's okay at the moment, but it's, you know, obviously some people would disagree, but to the best of my knowledge, this is the normal way it's dealt with in local government these days, and the check you have is the involvement of the independent person. And if the monitoring officer has any kind of conflict of interest, then I, as the deputy monitoring officer, would step in. Yeah.
Councillor Berry?
Excuse me if I'm mistaken, but is there a copy of the Code of Conduct that you're recommending in the agenda pack?
Yes, there is.
Is there a copy of the Code of Conduct that you're recommending in the agenda pack? Is there a copy of the Code of Conduct that you're recommending in the agenda pack?
It's in the background papers. It was included in the report last time.
All
And
right,
it's in the background papers.
I'm only subbing today, so I need to go back to. Yeah, is it somewhere attached? No.
I think Chris included it in the background papers because it was included last time.
Are we okay to carry on, Councillor Berry? Yeah. Okay. Right, part B again. What we're needing to do is to provide terms of reference for this committee. I'm not sure how we proceed on this actually in a meeting. How would you suggest we do it, Dave?
Well, we could suggest that it be referred to as a working group for any members to volunteer if they wish to be involved in that working group. And we could simply adopt what Councillor Clifford has said in terms of, you know, including do's and don'ts, going for a comprehensive document, but based on the existing South Ribble one or bids, and members can develop that document. If everyone's happy with that, that would be one way forward.
Thanks, Dave. So from the committee point of view, would we be happy to proceed along the lines of item of number 14 on the agenda, page 17, which were the 5 recommendations as to how we set about putting the thing in motion? Councillor Clifford?
Yeah, just to clarify, because some of them, when you go A, B, C, D, E, there's 2 parts within that plaque. Should it and do it. And basically, it's more to, if the members are happy to go with my proposal in terms of having it as a comprehensive document, including the do's and don'ts. And I think basically, if it's the newer way of doing it, I will say an I will then rather than a you will, whether members want that. But a question is as well, because it's obviously today, are we looking for the members to come forward today? Does that also need agreeing today at the meeting? Thank you.
I wouldn't say it would have to be agreed. I don't know. I'm just looking at Ben. I don't think it has to be agreed today, does it, Ben? But if members could put themselves forward within the next few days.
Yeah, we can contact members and obviously through to Democratic Services who might be interested, and we can obviously arrange dates and things like that from there.
Thanks, Dave and Ben. So, so are the committee happy to proceed along those lines? That we go, the terms of reference would be basically to come up with a comprehensive document, and it would be happy for Ben to contact members of the committee asking if they wish to join the working group.
Or would it be to the wider council members in case somebody else wants to get involved in it?
I was thinking it would just be taken from the members of the committee. I mean, ultimately, it will go to full council, so members can comment there.
Would that suffice from the administration point of view? So are we happy to proceed along those lines? Can we have a proposal and a seconder just to make sure it's all done? Thank you. Oh, no, I'm getting votes on everything now after last time. Item 6. We'll move on to the Internal Audit Progress Report, and Jackie Murray will present this. Over to you, Jackie.
Hello. The report you have in front of you is the Internal Audit Interim Report, which gives the progress up to the end of December 2023. So the purpose of the report is to give members an idea of the work that we've undertaken so far in respect of the current audit plan. So that's September up to December 23, and to give you an overview of the performance of the Internal Audit Service. So if I draw your attention to paragraph 6, this just gives you a bit of a background about how we work. So you may remember that the Internal Audit Service now work to 2 6-monthly plans, which allow us to be more responsive to any changes in the organisation, and we can replan regarding any emerging risks that come along. So within this paragraph, we've given you details of the number of audit days available within each plan and the total number of 269 days that we'll deliver by the end of March this year. So with our internal audit reports, we provided in Appendix A an overview of the plan as it stands for this year and our progress to date. And in the table 8 below, we've given you a bit more information about the reviews that we've recently completed. So you can see we have council tax, physical security, driver licence checks. We've got GDPR and asset management inventories, and we've given you the associated assurance ratings for those reviews. As is now the procedure, we've given you the full audit reports for each of those reviews, and they're attached at the corresponding appendix at the bottom of the report. To give you a reminder about where we are to date, we've given you an overview of the assurance ratings that the Internal Audit Service have awarded so far to date. So this is outlined in paragraph 10. You can see so far we've had no full assurance ratings, 2 substantial, 4 adequate, and 3 limited. You can see from the comments within the table in paragraph 8 as well, that where we've given a limited assurance rating, we've made sure that the timescales for the agreed actions on those reports have been quite narrow. And you can see that the majority of the actions will be completed by the end of this audit year, March 2024. And we've got the corresponding heads of service that are here today that can answer some specific questions that you may have on those particular reports. With regard to the performance of the internal audit team, this is outlined in paragraph 12, and really there's no concerns really at the moment. We're on track to deliver the internal audit plan, and our satisfaction survey levels remain at a high level. Dawn's alluded to earlier that the percentage of agreed actions implemented by management, although it hasn't achieved the 90% target that's set out, there's movements in the right direction, and it has improved significantly over the course of the year, and we're on track for it to reach the target by the end of the audit year as well. So I'm happy to answer any specific questions you might have on the progress report, and if you have any questions in relating to the specific audit reports, we've got the corresponding managers here today that can help you.
Thanks, Jackie.
Sorry, yeah.
Sorry, thanks, Jackie. Any questions from members of the committee? Councillor Clifford.
Thank you, Chair. Thought I'd jump in there. No, thank you for that report. It's always good to see, and also good to see things flag up when we see these 3 limited assurances. Now, I can see Asim Khan is on the call here. So I'm just going to concentrate on one, because I imagine the other members maybe want to concentrate on the other ones. But in terms of the report that came from the Salford Technical Audit Services, in terms of the ICT, now I can see actions are being taken. It reads as a very damning report, which you can look at it 2 ways. It's actually a good report that it shows up all the weaknesses, which is why these sort of reports should be done. But I'd just like to dig down a little bit of it, because some of the issues do look to be major, and if we could have a time frame on when will these issues be resolved, because they do look to be serious issues. So if I could get clarification on that, please.
Sorry, and that's for Asim.
Questions for Asim, really. It's about the servers, some of the issues that it's obviously when you read the report, it's quite a serious report. There's lots of concerns there, and I would hope to see that those issues resolved rather rapidly. So if we could discuss a time frame on that, please.
First of all, thanks for the question. I'm going to lean on my colleague Adam, who's in the chamber. Most of the actions that are contained within the report which I do accept are of a serious nature, not least because of the security implications on managing the server estate, or for our colleagues in property services to deliver. But I'm more than happy to answer any technical questions that might pertain to that. Just generally, I think the report spells out the risks associated with not undertaking this work in a timely manner, and the implications of that. But in terms of the timeframes, if Adam can respond to that, I'd be grateful. Thank you.
Thanks, Hasim. Adam?
Yeah, thanks for the question. So, like I said, I sat down with Dawn to run through this audit in December, and we've given timescales. We're looking to implement the actions by the end of March. That's the hope, but because some of it is quite, I guess, specific in nature with regards to the technology we need to implement and put in place with regards to leak detection and the like, we're just currently investigating different contractors and getting prices to do all this work, which then will need to be run past Asim to ensure that he's comfortable with the contractors that are working within the server room. There's a few quick wins with regards to a process in place for booking in people who are visiting the data centres. So I've drafted that, and that's with IT for review. And there's a few other places around security and alarms, intruder alarms, which can pick up quite quickly, which we're on with. So the hope is to have it all done by March, but like I said, it is of a specialist nature, so we're just working through getting prices with contractors to undertake these works.
Yeah, thank you for that. It's good to see that it's going to be, resolved quickly. There were a couple of technical bits in that, in terms of, I think, to do with the fire suppression as well. He mentioned these cylinders, and if you just explain that, because did it mean the cylinders contain a gas or whatever to actually put the fire out, and they weren't being tested? And I'm just trying to get to really what it meant in the report. Thanks.
On that, so I think it was more around the training of the staff. Yeah, so that's what they're doing, the items around the suppression, and it's with property and I think Matt and health and safety picking that up around the training of the staff for the suppression systems to ensure that they are adequately trained if there was an issue with fire, and just testing the systems. And that was the item.
Hasim, sorry.
Sorry, I couldn't hear that. I wasn't sure if you were asking me anything. Yeah, there were a couple of questions, or a couple of items in that report in relation to the head of ICT services. One is around CCTV. We've recently let a contract for CCTV generally, and that work will be picked up as part of that. And the second one was, I think, around ear defenders, which is a relatively straightforward one that we can implement. I think the recommendation is that anything that exceeds 19 decibels we should provide ear defenders for the people who are working within the server room environment. And I think that's something that we can probably do quite quickly if it's not already in place. Thank you.
Thanks, Hasim. Councillor Clifford.
Thank you. And putting another hat on here, servers produce an awful lot of heat. Obviously, I can see in this report that whether there's work needs to be done around the cooling of these. There's a little bit of overcooling going on. But in terms of efficiency and use, I don't know. I'm not an IT expert. I don't know how big these servers are. But is there any way they can actually be harnessed, the heat, just to have a little bit of efficiency to the council? Just a question with my other hat on. Thank you.
Well, if you wish to work from that environment and keep warm, Councillor Clifford, you're more than welcome to, as long as you comply with the security protocols. But joking aside, server technology has come a long way based on some of the concerns that you've just expressed. The energy footprint that is consumed by solid state servers, where traditionally they were spindle based and there were quite significant moving parts within that. The technology that's now deployed in large volume is what you would see similarly in terms of the flash drives that people have, where they carry data on smaller devices that they plug into their laptops and computers. Based on that technology, server estates have been developing using that, which reduces significantly the energy consumption. But it is an area of continual development. And the good news for us as a local authority is that we have a cloud strategy where the footprint of our server estate is generally decreasing anyway, because significant numbers of our compute and storage is going to cloud-based. So essentially, it's hosted by other people who have significantly more experience in managing server estates, because energy consumption is a key part of the overhead costs associated with running that infrastructure. So they have their own specialist and efficient kind of infrastructure in place, and we are picking onto the back of that by ensuring that we comply with our strategy, which is essentially to have more of our technology, more of our software cloud-based, which means obviously we would be reducing the server estates within our council buildings. So hopefully you'll see a trajectory where that footprint will reduce, and with that, the risk associated with managing that infrastructure. But it is something that we're alive to, and over the last, say, 5 to 10 years, certainly, if you look at what we had previously in the server room at Union Street, the kind of technology was probably 5-10-fold, but it's a significantly smaller footprint as it stands at this moment in time. I hope that answers your question.
Yeah. Thank you, Asim. It does. Yeah, thank you very much.
Any more questions? Councillor Hayden.
Could I just step back to number 6 just before I do have a point on this area, but on page 42 on the management action plan for item 6, number 2, it says about some errors suggesting that checks had been dropped during the process of the evaluation. Does that mean that the checks used to be done and somebody's dropped them intentionally? Sorry, on page 42, number 2 box, you're talking about the review of sample testing. You were advised that supervisory quality checks of officer administration have not been undertaken for the period under review. And these should be introduced.
Just for the council tax review.
Sorry, yeah. So I just wondered whether or not they have to be reintroduced, or is it something that?
Yes, it was checks that were historically established within the team, but the teams had a lot of movement over the last few years. There were 2 separate teams that are now a shared service. So where they've been realigning the processes, they've had quite a lot of staff turnover as well. So they've lost experienced members of staff. So some of the continuing supervisor reviews that were the bread and butter of the process have dropped off a bit. Yeah. So there was an assurance that with the team now in a better place, that they would be reintroduced straight away going forward.
Just seems worrying that processes and checks are dropped without a formal change to the internal processes. So I'm assuming that you'll put on your audit plan, I would imagine. Dawn, would you?
Supervisory checks is one of the things that we pick up in majority of audits that we carry out. So we look at them for each individual review that we do.
Okay, thank you very much. And then on to the executive summary for the physical security environmental controls. I think I felt too that it was quite a serious report, and it showed a very relaxed way of managing a particular area. And I'd like to just see how you're going to link it to the risk management process, because it seems to me that this area hasn't really been confident in assessing its risks. Otherwise, I don't think the report would have thrown up what it had have done at the minute. So how are you going to get an area like that on track to be able to manage the risks properly, to avoid having to go through this again? And also, what are the cost implications of all the introductions that are going to have to be made to get it onto a good footing?
So in terms of managing the risks going forward, one of the things that we expect to be in place when we start any audit is for them to have their own risk register identifying these sorts of risks. Now, as I'm going to come on to with the risk management strategy, this is something that's operational level risks are in development all the time. And it's as the audits come up that we start to develop more and more risk registers. So prior to this review carrying out, the risks were most probably known, but not formally recorded anywhere. But going forward now, we now have a formal risk register for that physical and environmental controls within the server rooms. So they'll be monitored and managed on an ongoing basis now going forward.
So do you think they need any special learning and development to be able to know how to identify risk and, you know, to
Risk
have
management
more
training.
perception?
Yeah, risk management training is something we deliver on an ongoing basis. So if there's any changes in staff, we deliver them to people individually, to teams as a whole. It's just something that we continuously do, risk management training. And if we ever, because we have the dedicated risk management system, as soon as we put a new person on, we deliver the risk management training for them. So it's that's a continuous process.
Okay.
In
And
terms of the cost,
yeah.
I'll pass you on to Adam for that.
Thank you.
Yes, there will be a cost, but we're just quantifying that at the moment, so we wouldn't be able to put a figure on that. But there is quite a bit of work on different systems that need to be implemented, installed. So there will be, a cost to undertaking these works.
So is it being managed as a project, or is it?
Yes, so the property team are now looking at it as a project to prepare, get quotes with appropriate contractors to understand the overall cost to implement these actions. Yes.
So maybe you could let us know what that
As
is.
soon as we can do.
next time. Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, Adam. Thanks, Councillor Hayden. Any more observations? Anybody? Can I just raise a couple? Sorry, no, Councillor Clifford, you go first.
No, if I was just checking that you were going to raise, Tom, as long as, just a little bit of explanation just on the driving licence checks, but I think maybe you were you going to mention that?
No.
Right. Just to clarify, that during the checks, that there was nothing, whilst it's very unfortunate that procedures could have been better around driving licence checks, I'm glad it's been flagged up, but just clarification that there was nothing serious found with anyone, as in somebody driving a HGV that doesn't have a HGV licence, as an example. Thank you.
Yeah, there were no issues that arose out of those errors that were being made. Obviously, I'm aware that this refers to both Chorley Council and South Ribble Borough Council, where we've got issues around waste. Obviously, our waste services here are outsourced. That specifically relates to South Ribble, not Chorley.
Councillor Hayden.
Could I ask Ollie, please? As part of that document, it did talk about other forms of checks as well for people who use their own vehicles on council business, but it doesn't get mentioned on the kind of like the plan. It just mentions the licence where we're talking about MOT certificates and certificates of insurance with that they actually are insured to drive. So is that going to be part of the process, because it doesn't say so in that document?
So this review was specifically on driving licence checks. What it has highlighted is that we need to make sure that all of the other things around driving are done, that we've got a robust process, and that is what we have implemented. So whilst this review specifically dealt with driving licence checks, we have picked up those other things as part of our policy and tightened all of our other controls around that, so that when I would anticipate we are audited on that within the next couple of years, that will then be tested.
Okay, thank you.
Any more points anybody wishes to raise? No? Sorry, Councillor.
Just on the GDPR, page 71, there are lots and lots of actions to take in this area as well. So it doesn't seem as though we're, what you would say, compliant with GDPR totally. And I just wondered, have we ever been compliant and we've dropped it off the radar because of COVID, or what are the reasons that we seem to have slipped into a bit of a poor state on this area as well?
Again, GDPR is one of those things that, similar to risk management, it's a moving feast all the time. When we get new staff in, we need to make sure that they're aware of their obligations in terms of GDPR. So it's just, you know, we've had quite a large shift in staff over the past couple of years. So, you know, perhaps our compliance has dropped off slightly. But we are now getting to a point, you'll recall that the past two GDPR reviews we've done have received limited assurance this is now adequate. So we are getting more on an even keel in terms of GDPR compliance.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hayden. Anyone else? Oh, my turn. Hopefully mine will be very brief, very short, and should be good answers. For Adam, just a couple of things on pages 50 and 51, visitor management. I noticed that was the timescale was 31st of December last year now. Is the committee safe to assume that there aren't hordes of unaccompanied contractors scurrying around the IT rooms?
To signing in and out of contractors going into these the server rooms or the comms rooms. However, the process which I have drawn up is still with IT for approval. So there is a process in place, but I just need it's gone to Jane, so I'm just waiting for formal approval. They're comfortable with that as well, and then it's just then the process that needs to be implemented going forward.
All right. So that's not actually
wouldn't say that's
met
complete.
the 31st of December one. Similarly, the one underneath the CCTV is that
That's ASIM CCTV. So
over to you, Asim. The CCTV that was due to be finished by the 31st of December.
Yeah. As I explained earlier on, the CCTV contract generally, the wider CCTV contract for Chorley Council has only recently been let, both in terms of its relocation and the maintenance contract. And as part of that work, the approved or selected contractor is going to undertake some work to ensure that CCTV coverage is implemented within the server room. So it's not met the deadline because the procurement exercise took a little bit longer than we had initially hoped. But as with the other deadlines, in terms of the wider work, I'm hoping that will be completed by the 31st of March. Just in relation to the access point that was referred to earlier on, that Adam responded to, there is an additional access point which is required for the server room. That order has been raised. That work to be undertaken by the contractor responsible for the remote the HFX access point for the server room.
Okay, thanks, Asim. So between the two of you, could we safely say 31st of March
yes.
will be?
Yeah.
Excellent. Right. Now then. Committee is required to note and provide feedback. We've had the feedback, I think, done it to death. Are we happy to note this report? Thank you. Item 7, the risk management strategy, pages 95 to 110. Over to Dawn.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah. So as was previously mentioned in the annual governance statement action plan, there was an action for us to review our risk management strategy and update it with our risk appetite. So that work has now been undertaken, and the revised risk management strategy is included at the appendix with any amendments highlighted in red so you can clearly see them. So what we've actually done is we've set our appetite. So in effect, what that means is the council has to decide a level of risk it's prepared to accept. So we've taken a broad brush approach with this, and we've said that any red residual risks, whether they be strategic risks, operational risks, project risks, whichever category of risk it is, if it remains a red residual risk after it's been through the whole directorate management team process, they need to be escalated up to the senior management team to agree or decide if they want to take further mitigating action against that risk. So that's a development in our risk management approach, in that we're clearly setting what our appetite is, and that we can, as I said, put more controls in place or agree to tolerate that level of risk if there's no further action we can take. The committee is asked to approve these changes to the risk management strategy, and then if you're happy with the approach that we're taking, the next step is I will meet with all the directors when I do my audit planning, which is in the next couple of weeks, and I'll start to set the reports up on Grace, which is our risk management system, so that directors can go in and run these reports routinely at their meetings on a monthly basis. That will help to identify these red residual risks that need escalation up to the senior management team. So again, I'm happy to answer any questions on the risk management strategy.
Thanks, Dawn. Any questions on the risk management strategy? Councillor Clifford.
Thank you, Chair. It's more of a comment, really. It's whilst you can never eliminate some of the serious risks, it is all about whether it can be mitigated, and it's good to see that this piece of work has come forward. So as a comment, I'm very happy to see that, so thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Clifford. Could I just check with Dawn, is it the red printing that we're basically being asked to approve?
No, it's the whole document, the whole strategy. I've just highlighted the changes in red.
Right, okay, yeah. So the stuff in black is already a part of the strategy. Yeah, right. Right, members of the committee. We've had a look. Are we happy to approve the revised risk management strategy? A proposer, please. Councillor Clifford, second to Councillor Hayden. All in favour? Thank you very much. It's approved. Item 8. Oh. The RIPA application update. I'm not expecting this is going to take very long.
I'm sure you're all on tender hooks about this one, but as ever, there is nothing to report. There's been no RIPA activity in the borough. Thank you.
Thanks, Dave. Item 9, the work programme. That's on your agenda, page 111. Items to be introduced to future agendas. Any comments from the committee?
Sorry,
Right.
Chair, I was just thinking maybe we need to add the social media protocol to the March meeting.
I take it there's no chance of us bringing it to the 8th of February, because all I'm thinking is the dates for full council will actually be into election season. Following the March one, the next full council isn't until the middle of April.
It's a question whether we can have it ready for, is it the 8th of February, the next one? That would be a very tight turnaround. That's the only problem. I understand what you're saying, but that would be a tight turnaround.
Okay. In that case then, that's the work programme. Any urgent business previously agreed with the chair? We have none, but a reminder to everybody of the additional committee meeting at 2:30 p.m. on Thursday, the 8th of February. The meeting is now concluded. Thank you for your time.